What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into Celtics Postgame Live, our postgame show. I am your host, Robbie Tan. Joining with me are my two awesome co-hosts, Seamus Arlingo and Justin Lowe. Celtics, they picked up an ugly one on the road, but a win is a win. No Jaylen Brown. The Boston Celtics complete the sweep on the season series against the Toronto Raptors in the 105-96. Drew Holiday was your leading scorer for the Celtics, 22 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists for him. Derek White and Jason Tatum helped along the way with the 19 and 21 piece from them. Porzingis, Horford, all 5 starters in double figures for the Boston Celtics for the 17th time this season. Celtics, guys, wasn't the prettiest win, but I think this game kind of is the epitome of a win is a win. We saw the Celtics have that little third quarter struggle to begin the quarter, but they figure things out behind the hands of Jason Tatum. He was awesome in that third quarter, really doing it all for the C's. Seamus, Justin, you guys know how we do this thing. Your initial thoughts, reactions, takeaway on the C's big time dub tonight in the 6.
Well, man, this one was a little bit too close for comfort. I will say at times I expected the Celtics to come in here and blow the brakes off of the Toronto Raptors. And Justin and I kind of went through a post-game how the Raptors are a little bit discombobulated of a team, new rotation, new players. Their record isn't that great, and a couple players they know not too happy either on their way out, most likely in less than a month. Pascal Siakam, one of their all-stars, likely being one of those names. But the Toronto Raptors actually put up a fight tonight. They're a team that's very, like you said, Justin, earlier in pregame, pesky. And they were very physical. They were very aggressive going towards the rim. The Celtics, I mean, we'll get after it about their defense later, because the Celtics didn't get after it on defense tonight. Although they only gave up 96, it was a slow-paced game. They only took 82 shots on the night the Celtics did. And this game, I felt the Celtics at times just lacked physicality, lacked intensity on the defensive end of the floor. And that's why the Toronto Raptors were able to make their way into this game during certain points of the contest. And also in the paint, look at inside the paint, look at points in the paint for tonight. The Boston Celtics, they were completely compromised when it came to paint scoring. The Toronto Raptors led that category the entire way through, and you could see it on the floor playing out in front of us. And I think the Celtics moving forward can get a lot better than they played tonight. Obviously, no Jaylen Brown. He's been sort of the catalyst of the Celtics offense being very aggressive, and defensively he's been bringing the intensity as of late. So we can put a little bit of a note that no Jaylen Brown tonight. He was not present in the lineup when the Celtics needed him in certain moments of the game, but was a W, was a victory. And Rob, you said it. It's a win is a win.
I think when you go through the course of the regular season, you're going to come across these games, right? You're coming off of a blowout loss. You're coming off of a then blowout win to respond to the blowout loss. And then you get a meh game, a game where it's like, literally, like it's not bad. It's not good. It's not great. But the Celtics were able to come away and get a nice road win in Toronto to sweep the season series. I mean, look, listen, there was no glitz and glamour about this game at all. This was a very gutsy, gritty win for the Celtics. There was a point in time where the Celtics fell down by 7, and then they led by 14 to start the fourth, and then Toronto kind of edged their way back into the game. Then some timely shots by Derek White and Drew Holiday. Like, this was just like the Celtics executed well down the stretch, but that little third quarter stretch to open up the second half, I mean, it's just typical. It was like a typical Celtics type thing. But I mean, this was a game where Seamus and I talked about it in the pregame show. This is a game you got to go out there and you got to win. Like, this Toronto team is not going to back down. 3 out of the 4 games that we played the Toronto Raptors, they've ended in single digits, right? Like, it was a 3-point game, a 2-point game. Now tonight, a 9-point game. So this Toronto team clearly gave Boston the run for their money in all 4 games, except for that first game. But like we said, Rob, this was a good win for the Celtics. And you know what, though? I will say, every time Toronto kind of gave Boston that punch, Boston responded very, very well. I said to Seamus, I texted Seamus during the game, and of course he didn't answer right away, so it made it look horrible on my end. But in the beginning of the third quarter, when Toronto took that 7 or 8 point lead and Joe Mazzulla called a timeout, it almost felt like that Orlando game earlier in the season where shots just weren't falling. Toronto seemed to take over. Seamus just shaking his head, and I don't know.
Because I know my exact response to you when you sent that in text to me. You're like, this is kind of like the Orlando game. And you sent it in the third quarter, but I responded maybe halfway through the fourth when the Celtics were in the lead. Like they resurmounted their lead going into the fourth.
But that's the feeling I felt in that third quarter where the life was just getting sucked away from the Celtics. They weren't hitting shots. They weren't playing with the flow. I don't know. The pace was controlled to start that third quarter. The pace was just totally controlled by Toronto, and very, very, very good response, specifically from Jason Tatum in the Celtics to walk away with the W here tonight. Rob,
I thought, despite an ugly game, there's actually a lot to talk about. A lot of good, some bad. I thought Missoula's timeouts great tonight. Didn't love the rotation. More Brissett. We'll talk about that later. I don't know why we're seeing him in the first quarter and not seeing him again.
Oh, good. Oh, good. You saved yourself. I thought you meant no, you don't want, because I thought you meant you like you're pissed about you're pissed about seeing Brissett.
No, we're seeing more Brissett. We're seeing these early Brissett minutes that are always so great, and then all of a sudden it's like here's Luke Cornett, and it's like So again, I'm not loving that. I think what we saw from Jason Tatum in that third quarter is growth. The ability to have to recognize that. Listen, we need to win this game. Right. Listen, we're down. Let me get us this lead back. And there was just a 5-minute stretch where the Raptors weren't scoring. Tatum was active on defense and then just driving the basket. And I love to see that out of your superstar on a game against the Toronto Raptors team, which is a weaker team in January. But at the end of the day, it's a game in January where I'm very happy we won, because this January, I'm not looking really for the quality of the win. And I know that might sound weird, but this January is going to be such an exhausting month for the Celtics, and it's going to take a lot out of them, that I think every win is big time, because this is going to be our hardest month of the schedule, and I'm prepared for that. I think record-wise, we will see a significant drop from the 13-2 month in which December was. So again, January, every win, I think, is a good win. And I know that might sound a little bit twisted, but when you have these back-to-backs, when you have these, especially traveling back-to-backs, you're one day on the East Coast, next day on the West Coast, you have this double West Coast, New Orleans, and then Houston, and you're bouncing all over the place. And it's important for the Celtics to just win. At the end of the day, I believe this team will progress, and you're going to have guys in and out of the lineup. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if you saw no Porzingis Wednesday night at home against the Spurs, or no Horford. Like, you're going to have guys bouncing in and out of the lineup because of how rigorous this month's schedule is. So again, I thought Toronto played like how they were going to play. They're at home. They're a new young team, and they're looking to get some wins, and that's how they played tonight. And listen, Boston, you need some of these wins, some of these figure it out wins, and this type of win, I think, goes a long way. And you might call me crazy, but I think you learn more about yourself in a win like this, opposed to a 40-point blowout win when every shot's falling. You find new ways to win. The Celtics recognized the fact that they needed to get to the basket in that third quarter, and they started to do so. So I thought those were things that the Celtics did tonight that were real positives. I thought, again, there's some players I want to talk about, which I'll get to, but the guy I want to start us off by talking about is the player of the game, Mr. Jrue Holiday. I mean, what a great game from Jrue. 22 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 blocks, and I believe he had 2 steals as well. 7 of 14 from the floor, 4 of 6 from 3. It just felt like every time the C's needed a bucket, it was this guy. Jrue was awesome tonight. And again, we're seeing him get more comfortable. I want to play a short clip from the Mazzulla post-game No, it's good. Trust me.
Okay.
This one's good. This one's good.
Right.
Don't worry.
We
Don't
were all
worry.
me and Justin went, no.
It is off Twitter. Don't worry. It is via Taylor Snow, so we're good. Don't worry. So let's quick 10-second clip on Jrue Holiday.
Everybody forgets when Derek first got here, the adjustment that it took for him, and Drew's in that category now, and he's just learning how to affect the game differently, and you can see him getting more comfortable on both ends of the floor. And I thought he did that tonight.
So again, talking about how there was this adjustment period, guys, when White got here, where it wasn't the same Derek White we're seeing this season or even last year. It was a much different type of player. And I think something that we're going to see with Holiday is that as the season progresses and as he, gets more furniture into his place and more, when you get settled in and you get your bedding put in and you get your pictures on the wall and it feels more like home and you get your routine down and, you're not stuck in traffic, the back roads on how to get to the arena, right? Stuff like that, which you can get acclimated into Boston, into the area. I think we're going to start seeing this Jrue Holiday, the Jrue Holiday that was an all-star last year and a champion, which we've seen glimpses and flashes of. But I think tonight was the Jrue Holiday, Seamus, that we expected and are going to continue to see as the season progresses.
Well, this is why the Celtics are ultimately so good. Last month, you had Derek White going off, and now he's not really making as many shots down the stretch, not looking too much like an all-star. But guess who is? Jrue Holiday. He, over this last stretch, has all of a sudden really turned up his game. And I believe you're right, Rob. When you get acclimated into a situation and get your routine, get your legs under you as time moves forward, moves on, I mean, just look at us on this post game. It's definitely a lot different, us going in this rhythm, coming in here, talking about the team, than game number one, game number two. It's not the same at all. So it's for Jrue Holiday right now in January, this is when you expect for him to be picking up his rhythm more and more and more. And tonight he hit 2 huge threes down the stretch. Derek White, I will say, I did mention that he wasn't hitting as many because he still will put in his occasional big shot every now and then. We saw one from him down the stretch tonight, but Jrue Holiday and his performance certainly deserved player of the game. And there is another graphic I want to bring up real quick in the lead tracker for tonight, because this one was, that third quarter there, guys. Justin, we talked about a pregame. I was like, hey, maybe the third quarter issues are a little overblown. We do see a big avalanche sometimes.
Yeah. Why has this been every Celtics lead tracker of the season? I feel like out of the 31 wins, this has been about 23 of them, in which it's, we're winning all game. Oh, third quarter. Oh, no, we got it. It's like every game.
It's always somewhere in the middle. It can either be halftime, like right into halftime, right after the third quarter. And even in the Avalanche ones, you could see there's sometimes a little bit of a dip that transpires in these lead trackers. And there's the lead tracker for tonight. Justin, that you can see in this lead tracker where Justin texted me that this felt like the Orlando game. Right there in the third quarter, when the Raptors had a 7-point lead, and then right when it spiked back up for the Celtics, I went, Justin, I think the Celtics had this game, and so that's what he's talking about in regards to me making him look bad over text, unfortunately. But yeah, the lead tracker tonight for the Celtics looks good in the fourth quarter. It looks great in the fourth quarter. Even that little dip in the fourth quarter maybe could be reconciled just a little bit, but you come out with the win either or. And I do feel like, Rob, this one was not as emphatic as maybe some of the other. This one was more emphatic, actually, I should say, than some of the other lead trackers this season, where the Raptors really, in that third quarter, I mean, that was a real dip. For a brief moment, I thought, oh, man, we were going to come on here and talk about the Celtics' first bad loss of the season. I really did. Yeah, I mean, it was right there in front of us in that third quarter, that little dip. I don't know what you guys think about that, but
I think I'm going to name drop two. Milwaukee, and then that Charlotte one was bad. But this one's up there. If we lost this, it probably was one.
Oh, I will say the Charlotte one, though, you can put a little bit of an asterisk on that one because it was a second night of a back-to-back on the road after Memphis, where we had to play the whole game to beat the Grizzlies. I remember I was at that Grizzlies game, and then the next night, I was like, man, I'm like 9,000 miles away from the Celtics right now, and we were in the same building last night. So I felt I felt like that was a little bit of like, man, they really have to play basketball tonight. I'm tired from just driving across the country. They had to play basketball 2 times in a row. All I had to do was watch. But I do want to articulate a little bit more the Celtics struggles against the Raptors tonight, because this one, we do want to like look at little things against opponents and track what the Celtics do well and what they don't throughout a season. And tonight against the Raptors, Justin, you said it, pace, and I said it earlier too with points in the paint. The stats here, ready? Points in the paint tonight, 60-28 in favor of the Raptors. Fast break points, 30-15 in favor of the Raptors. And a lot of that came in the third quarter. And like I said, the paint, that was really a consistent trend throughout the game. But the Celtics, they have to be better at not allowing their opponent to get inside the paint so easily. I thought Scotty Barnes and both RJ Barrett in particular, they were super aggressive in getting inside the paint and making things happen at the bucket tonight, and even making things happen for other players. I don't think the Raptors are really in this stage of being good right now at all. I think they're in this mediocre lottery team, probably maybe could make the play-in considering some of their talent. But I do like some of the pieces that they've implemented for the future, potentially, because we did see that aggression tonight from the team. It's just when you shoot 4 of 32 from 3, which is 12% on the night, that's just simply not going to get it done. Never.
No. I will say though tonight, in regards to the point scoring or the points in the paint differential, I did feel like Boston was getting to the rim. They just were missing some like gimmies. Like I think Derek White had 3 just gimmies around the rim in the fourth quarter in the last 5 minutes alone, that just too short or too strong on it. So it was, again, I was watching it and I remember I was like, we're getting the looks. We are getting them. It's just one of those games where it's like not falling. So it's like, even if we obviously, again, it goes back to my point, winning cures everything. Winning solves everything. If we don't win this game, I'm probably don't have this perspective on it. But if we say we did lose, it's like, how frustrated could you be when you hold a team under 100 and you lose? It's like, is that an outlier game? Or it's just like, again, it's like these Toronto games have really been hard to assess with the Celtics because they've all been so weird. I think Toronto presents a potential difficult matchup for us that is really not what we're looking at. And they're a lengthy, strong, fast team. And it kind of feels like that is what the Boston Celtics struggle against. Those Indiana Pacers, those Oklahoma City, those teams that can really get out and run. And Toronto presents this physical aspect with Scotty Barnes and now the RJ Barrett. And I mean, even Schroeder's a quick, bigger, stronger guard that can, obviously he's short, but his physicality is there. So again, it's a little interesting on how to assess this game, Justin, in the aspect where it's like, Toronto has just played us tough all year. It's like, how do you look at this?
I mean, it's hard to look at this, and it's really hard to look at the Toronto Raptors, Rob, because in 2 to 3 weeks, we could be seeing a totally different Raptors team where we're like, is this even the same team we played 4 times this year already? So it's like, I don't know. You like take it with a grain of salt, right? Like just happy the Celtics walked away with 4 victories. I 3 of them came down the stretch, down to the wire, and I think those are 3 games that you could use against a tough team like Toronto presents a matchup. And like you said, Rob, like Toronto poses this physical game, like almost like we're not going to come in and beat you, but we're going to come in and muck it up.
Right.
And that's how we're going to beat you. Right. Like, just like you mentioned, similar to maybe not on the level of an Oklahoma City Thunder, but similar to a Thunder and Orlando Magic, a Pacers, like you mentioned, teams that, give the Celtics a hard time, but might not pull out the victory. I don't know, Rob. I don't know how much to take from
that's right.
This.
Yeah.
Like it's and the Celtics swept this season series, but it kind of feels like when we swept the Brooklyn Nets and every game was close, right? Like it's like, oh, we swept them, but it was
we could have gotten
it's
swept.
not like we right. It's like it's not like we absolutely dominated the matchup. And every time we played them, the roster was different. Like, some players were in, some players were out. But if you're looking at it from a long-term perspective, this was a good win for Boston. And you mentioned earlier in the show, I forget who it was, but the way I look at this game, in these games going forward, like in January, how it's a tough, busy schedule for Boston and how will they handle it? I want to see consistency throughout the season, winning throughout the entirety of the season. And when I say that, go back to the 2021-2022 team. The Celtics started off like 21-24. Celtics didn't start winning the year they went to the finals. They didn't start winning till after the trade deadline, February and March, right? So they had a slow start to the season. Then last year, Celtics had this historic start to the season. They were one of the best offensive teams statistically in NBA history, and then they kind of teetered out around the All-Star break, and they were still good, but you could tell that they've definitely slowed down. Well, I want to see that pace continue throughout the whole entirety of the regular season. Now it's hard. An 82-game season is long. You don't get that many off days. These guys, yes, they get paid millions of dollars, but they're human too. They go through the trials and tribulations. I really want to see where this team is at winning wise. Where are they at winning wise through the course of an 82-game season? Can they consistently win? Can they consistently pull games like this out? These games are so difficult. These muck it up games are some of the most difficult games. I bet you some nights the Celtics look at the schedule and go, oh man, the Toronto Raptors. Not with the fear of we're going to lose to the Toronto Raptors, not with the fear of, oh, we're scared of the future face of the league, but the fact of these guys are going to muck it up, these guys are going to make it difficult for us, and we're going to leave here, even if we win, we're going to leave here feeling like we just played on a second night of a back-to-back on TNT.
I feel like, all right, I want to ask this question. Is this a game they lose last year?
I don't know. I say that every game.
That's why I'm reluctant to ask, because it's like the more I think about it, the more I'm actually impressed with this win. Because again, it was a figure it out type of win. There's going to be some games in April where your shot's not falling, the other team's shot not falling, and it's a dogfest. Those games, if you see Miami or if you see New York, especially New York, or, one of those Cleveland, even one of those high defensive, even though, Cleveland's a super high defensive productivity team where they really put the pressure on you defensively to get the stop because that's what they're doing.
I want to stop you there, not to interrupt you, but I'm going to interrupt you. Team-wise, you look at the roster 1 through 15, and you can say, do we lose this game? But for me, it goes by the individual player, right? The maturity of Jason Tatum we mentioned earlier in that third quarter, putting the game on his shoulders when the Celtics were down and they needed Jason Tatum to step up. Jason Tatum stepped up. Now, we saw games like that last year, but you could just tell like it's been different with Jason Tatum, at least as of late. Like the level that he gets to, go to that Minnesota game. I mean, he locked in, right? And it's like, and then it's like you also go to Derek White. Derek White was great last year for the Celtics, but how much more comfortable does he look with the Celtics this year? Right? Like it's insane. We're talking potential all-star game Derek White. I know it's a little bit unlikely with the past week, but and then Al Horford, we're getting that consistency out of him where he had a little slow start to the season. He had a double-double tonight, fellas. 10 and 11 for Al Horford tonight. Right? So I think you look at it, and from a team-wide perspective, it's like, yeah, maybe we do drop this. But individually, each of these Celtics players have matured, and it's really showed. And that's why the Celtics can pull out games down the stretch this year.
And something I do want to mention real quick is the Jason Tatum that you're mentioning.
All right.
He's hit this point, I feel like, this month where he's not going to let you lose. And I think we have seen it. Obviously, we saw it in the Minnesota game, and I think we saw it tonight, but it's just like he can recognize now, okay, I need to do this to get us this win. Because, I mean, again, if you look at the box score, you'd think, bad night for Tatum, 19 points. But really, in that third quarter, when the Celtics went down by 9, it was him. And he did it in Minnesota when the Celtics, again, his ability to take over the game and the maturity, I feel like, aspect. You talk about that individual maturity.
Right.
His maturity to just step up and say, I'm not going to let us lose that. And I didn't feel like I saw that with him, obviously, in that Game 7 performance against Philly in the playoffs last year. But there needs to be, again, I say this, it has to be Tatum, it has to be Brown if we want to win the championship, right? But these games, that's why these games in January are so, like, if you really look at it, it's like that stuff matters. Yeah. Those little things, that 15 or that 20-4 run that Tatum displayed for us, that's big because those are habits. The ability to have the awareness on January 15th on the road in Toronto, okay, I need to take over win this game, will show up if you're doing it tonight in April against the Philadelphia 76ers in a Game 3 that we've seen the Celtics, those types of games that we've dropped in years past. So again, it's like, what can you pull from these regular season games? Individual maturity. That's individual. That's progression.
I'll tell you what, I don't understand, and I try not to, doing social media for the last 8 years, I try not to read comments and really go into it with people, but I don't understand where all this, the narrative of, where's this? Oh, it'll disappear in the playoffs. Oh, where's this in the playoffs? Game 3 of the 2021 first round, Jason Tatum against the Nets. Game 6 in the 2022 Eastern Conference semifinals in Milwaukee against the defending champion. Game 6 in the fourth quarter against the Philadelphia 76ers in the 2023 Eastern Conference semifinals. Game 7 in the Eastern Conference semifinals 2023 against Philadelphia 76ers, 51 points, which is the most ever in a Game 7 scoring-wise. Where is this narrative coming from? Now, a 2022 NBA Finals failure from Jason Tatum is getting overwritten by everything, which understandable. I get it. But this narrative of Jason Tatum cannot show up during the playoffs is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know why people are riding that narrative. And there's so many different players. There's so many other superstars out there who are getting way more credit than Jason Tatum. And you know what the only response to those people is? Cry about it. That's what they tell me. Cry. Womp womp. That's what they say. And I just don't understand what the hate. And then put being a Celtic hater aside. You're a basketball fan and you're not a casual. Where is this hate from Jason Tatum coming from? Where is it in your heart that it's coming from? Because it's absolutely ridiculous. Because
he's on the Boston Celtics.
It is absolutely ridiculous.
It's two things. It's number one. Well, I should say it's three things. Number one, it's the media who's in control of the narrative. Well, the national media, it's mostly made up of Los Angeles, New York media sources. That's just the reality of the situation. Secondly, the markets in which they're trying to prop up all the players and the product. Well, Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics, they've been good since 2018. ESPN and ABC and Disney and TNT, Turner Sports, they've been showing the Boston Celtics on TV since 2018. They want some new cats up on screen. And number three, I think, just to pull up threes from Tatum. I mean, honestly, every game where he shoots, I mean, tonight he was 1 of 6 from 3, but I actually like the amount of attempts. That's the positive thing about Jason Tatum's game tonight. 1 of 6, I don't care about because he only took 6 attempts. Now, if he was 1 of 9, I would certainly have a little bit more of an issue. So Jason Tatum, with his pull-up threes over the past month and this year, I don't think he's done himself a favor within the media game because there are these other efficient players out there who might not have that discrepancy within their game. But I think Jason Tatum still belongs within the top 5 of the NBA and at his peak when he's aggressively attacking and then rhythmically moving out to the perimeter and attacking there. That's when he's at his best. And we've seen that in the playoffs again and again and again. And this narrative is created by people who just want to hate. I mean, there are professional haters on the internet. I mean, shout out to @NFL Memes IG. Like, I love that account, but he's just a professional hater account. If you actually question like which team is he rooting for, it's the hate team. That every team who loses ends up on that page. It's the same way with the NBA media and some people out there just within the conversational sphere of the NBA and the NBA community. All they want to do is pick out what is wrong and not what is right with a team. And I do think you guys picked out a lot what was right for the Celtics. And I do want to balance it out, though, because I want to pick out what's wrong with the Celtics a little bit tonight. I thought this win was just a little bit lucky. Okay.
Right.
It was a lucky win because look at the 3-point percentages and made threes. 4 of 32 for the Raptors, which I already mentioned, 12.5%. That is the worst I've seen a team shoot against the Celtics this season. And you look at the Celtics line, they were 16 of 39, 41%. That's pretty good from three for the Celtics. And you think that they don't make a couple more of those threes, and the Raptors, they don't shoot 12% from three. The rebounding discrepancy, the points in the paint discrepancy, the fast break points discrepancy, all of that becomes much more inflated in this game, and it becomes a legitimate problem for the Celtics in a potential, what could have became a loss if they didn't make a couple more threes and the Raptors miss a couple more threes, because everything else in this game, I thought the Celtics, yes, there were moments in which they needed to show up, and they showed up in the moments in which they needed to near the end of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter. But I thought for the majority of the game, who held more intensity? The Toronto Raptors.
Well,
who held the pace of the game? The Toronto Raptors.
Real quick.
Who was in control, it felt like, outside of the score for most of the game? It was the Toronto Raptors, and the Celtics, they just weren't playing their style of basketball.
So off that, this is the second time this season the Celtics have shot better from three than they did from two. The only other time they did that was the Indiana game at the beginning of the year where they blew them out by 50, where they shot 57% from three and 54% from two. So again, I agree with you, Seamus. It was the Raptors lost this.
I completely forgot to bring this up in the stats here. Raptors Celtics field goal attempts. Okay, Raptors 95.
Yeah.
Okay, Celtics 82.
Yeah.
Okay, 13 more attempts for the Raptors in the game. That's, I mean, just from a raw stats perspective, give a team 13 more attempts than another team. See what happens in the long term with their winning percentages. I guarantee you the team who has 13 more attempts, they're probably going to win 6 or 7 times.
Right.
10 times long term.
It didn't help how Toronto had 4 more offensive rebounds and Boston had 12 turnovers as well, 5 of which came in the first quarter, which really Boston really dodged a bullet in that first quarter, because if they weren't shooting 58% in that first quarter, Celtics really could have dug themselves in a hole early. I thought the first quarter was very sloppy, even though I only saw half of it because Celtics pregame live ran halfway through the first quarter. But this is definitely a game where the Celtics dodged a bullet, and it was not all sunshine and rainbows for the Green. And you know what? I'll tell you right now. We mentioned it. We kind of touched on it earlier in the postgame show, but Boston did not play great defense tonight whatsoever. There were certainly possessions where they absolutely locked up the Toronto Raptors, but don't let that 96 fool you, because Seamus just mentioned the 4 of 32 3-point shooting, which is just very atrocious. Go back and watch the game. A lot of those are missed lapses. A lot of those were wide open looks. A lot of those Manuel quickly brinking in and out on the rim, where, I thought late in the game when Toronto had this down to 4, quickly they just run up, pull up 3, and just miss off the back of the rim. Like, Celtics got lucky tonight. I also, like, I knew it was pretty bad. You really know it's bad, not only just because they shot 12.5% from 3, but when Thaddeus Young starts shooting corner threes and the air ball, that
he had one 3-point attempt tonight, and that was it.
Yeah. Something I do want to talk about. And actually, this is my first ill word I've said on him all season long. Kristaps Porzingis. I think these past couple games, and again, he's been great all year, But Chris 6 turnovers tonight for Kristaps. Half the Celtics team turnovers. Inefficient, only 2 of 6 from the floor, only took 6 shots. Got to the line, which was impressive, but I wanna see Kristaps take over this type of game. No Jaylen Brown. Tatum really didn't have it going in the first half. Tatum was playing a little bit complacent, but this is a game where Porzingis, no one on the Raptors can guard Kristaps Porzingis, and I'd like to see him have a game against Toronto. These are his games, I feel like. And again, you wanna see him show up in the big time ones, but I think this is why we brought him here, to be the second option, against a team like Toronto with no Tatum or Brown. I need to see Porzingis a little bit more under control and a little bit more aggressive. 6 shots for Porzingis in a game where Brown plays, and in a game which we're struggling from 2 is in no way, no world what I wanna see. Especially one of his 6 attempts came from about 45 feet out, almost like literally almost from the logo. He pulled it, and I was like, "What?" So, you know, I do think as good as he's been, he has struggled, and that is something that I wanna see, fixed in the later games, even against Milwaukee. He was the only fresh legs, and he came out and laid an egg for us, and I thought that was an opportunity for him to really carry the load and try to maybe keep us in that game in that first quarter and not let that lead get so large. And I think Kristaps, who has been phenomenal all year, but at the end of the day, you're not perfect. And I think tonight for Kristaps was an example that, listen, as great as the big man has been, I do think he needs to be aggressive. He needs to, one, stay under control. 6 turnovers from your center, I think, is inexcusable. That should never, be the case. But he needs to be in a game like this the X factor, the difference, the guy that makes us different from the league. When you're missing Jaylen Brown, you still have Kristaps as your number 2. He wasn't that tonight, and I really do think he needs to be.
He didn't seem to be as strong with the ball tonight. He seemed to be getting the ball poked from him quite a lot tonight, and I think the 6 turnovers will tell you that as well. He did miss a lot of blue bursts tonight, Rob. You mentioned earlier in the game Derek White missed a lot of blue bursts. Same thing with Kristaps Porzingis, and I think that's also a big reason why your paint points were significantly lower than the Toronto Raptors. But I agree. Kristaps Porzingis just looked rough tonight. How many free throw attempts did he have? He did get to the line a lot.
Let's check.
That's where a majority of the points came
12
from.
times.
He had 12 free throw attempts. He hit 10 free throws. I think that's definitely the positive point in his game tonight. But the 4 3-point attempts and the 2 2-point attempts.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I actually talked about the last time. Rob, you brought it up where you're like, this is the first time we talked about Kristaps Porzingis in a negative light. I think I brought him up once in December for this issue, halfway through December. But honestly, looking at his numbers every single game, it doesn't seem like it's getting all that better in terms of the ratio of 3s to 2s he takes.
Yes.
Now, I understand that he wants to shoot 3s. I mean, he can shoot over everybody. You're 7'3". When you can see over everybody as a 7'3" center, and you can stroke it. I mean, you guys remember Ian's video at the Garden back at the beginning? Rob, you might have actually taken this video. One of you guys took this video at a game earlier this season where Porzingis was just launching them from mid-court and just hitting each one. So when you can see over everybody and you have that ability, I mean, it's pretty easy to fall into the game of I'm just going to sit here on the perimeter and shoot it. But we do want to see him attack more often than shooting 3s. We don't want to see the ratio be 50-50 split. We want to see more of a 60-40 ratio with Porzingis most likely. And in this game, I think there's a little bit of an explanation because of the size of Toronto, but then you do look at it and go, they didn't have Jakob Poeltl. It's more of a physicality thing. I thought they had more physical bigs. And Kristaps Porzingis, I think he does a good job of striking mismatches who are smaller than him, but also less physical than him. But if you also look at this Toronto team, we have guys who are smaller than him height-wise, but maybe more physical than him in the stature department of their bodies. And I think physically, Kristaps Porzingis might struggle with that against some opponents. And that'll be interesting to see as we head further on into the season, which opponents, if we start paying attention to this more on a nightly basis, which opponents he really eats with and which opponents he just completely, I don't want to say folds, but just doesn't necessarily assert himself aggressively the way he can assert himself. And tonight was certainly one of those games where just to six shots. I mean, you can easily see the philosophy in what the Celtics were trying to do tonight, which is attack more on the perimeter than around the paint, when Kristaps Porzingis, our center, only has 6 shots on the night, and 4 of them are 3-point attempts.
Well, I do think that what's frustrating about this, and again, you mentioned the ratio. You're okay with hit more threes when we're trying to stretch a team out. We're playing a Philly, a Milwaukee, a team that has an interior defender, that Minnesota, that we're trying to extend out to the 3-point line to chase him. Tonight, I mean, Toronto, I mean, Porzingis, you should eat them alive. You should eat them alive. He should have had 30 and, again, only 6 rebounds in a game in which it kind of felt like Toronto was getting the offense. I mean, we won the rebounding battle by 1, but it felt like Toronto was out rebounding us. And, shout out Tatum and Horford, they helped out, but you just want to see him be more aggressive. And again, not a lot of bad things to say about Porzingis so far this year.
No.
But one of them, I think he needs to be more assertive. You need to feel the presence of Kristaps Porzingis. He's too talented and I think too skilled to have a game like this against Toronto, in which if we lost, you would have sat, again, winning cures everything. If he lost, you would have been much more upset and unhappy with how he handled this game, because first of all, 6 shots with no Brown, even 6 shots with Brown, he needs to be at right around 13, 14 at the bare minimum. He's too good to be taking 6 shots, and you need to see him be way more aggressive, Justin. He needs to be assertive.
Okay, I'm going to bring this up. I'm watching a couple of segments and clips right now from the game, and I feel like I bring this up every time a player has a semi-bad game, but are they injured? Because some of these possessions, it's like, Kristaps, can you run? Can you move your feet quicker? Can you get off the ground a little bit faster? I mean, some of these possessions are really atrocious, particularly by Porzingis. I mean, the entire team defensively tonight was certainly not as engaged as they should have been. The energy, this is where you wonder if we're playing a lot of games now, getting further into the season. Games are really going to come every other day now for the rest of January. Maybe there's some tired legs in there, but that's going to have to, I mean, I don't know what to tell the team, because every other team's playing just as much as them, and they're not going to have a ton of rest to reconcile their tired legs if that's the issue here, because there are a lot of possessions where you can look at Porzingis and the Celtics team as a whole, but they're just not moving their feet. They're not getting off the ground. They're not reading coverages correctly, or I shouldn't even say reading them correctly. They don't want to cover coverages correctly within the defensive scheme in which they're running. And I don't know, this game, they won, and I'm happy they won. The Celtics won this game, but there are a lot of things that I take away that just need to be fixed going ahead. And I will say, let's look at this game again. This isn't a loss. This is an actual win, but say it was a loss. No Jaylen Brown against a young, newer, this is a newer team now. All of a sudden, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel quickly joined the squad, and they were faster tonight than the Celtics. So it does fit into the category of some of our other losses, other bad performances. Young, hungry, high-paced team against the Celtics without one of their top 6 players. It did fit the recipe of that tonight. So I guess we can look at that a little bit. But for the overall performance of who was out there outside of Jaylen Brown, because we know this team is still very talented without him, this is not a very impressive performance to me by the Celtics in any metric whatsoever. If you look at the film and the numbers, I know I know they pulled it out, and that's actually the optimistic part about this, is that you want to overcome, like in moments of adversity, you want to overcome them and win the ball game. No matter what, no matter what your numbers look like, whatever you look like throughout the game, win the game at the end. That's what the Celtics did. We have to be happy about that. But a lot of what transpired in this game cannot transpire moving forward if the Celtics expect to have more success this season.
I do think that when you look at where we've been at, I mean, we're 5-3 in this month of January. 3 losses obviously coming to Oklahoma City, Milwaukee, and then Indiana. Which Indiana one was just, I mean, I'm not really too upset about that. I mean, I'm upset about it, but I don't really consider that a loss. So I'll call us 5-2. We'll scratch that one, 5-2-1. Because quite frankly, I can't put much blame on them. I mean, they did score 130 something, 33 points, I believe. So you would like to see that not be that high, but I do think that you're getting lazy defense from this team. And again, the schedule's been tough. I mean, really tough. They haven't had a home, just a chance to be at home for a week in forever since that home stretch at the beginning of December. So it's been a month since they've really been able just to kind of get their feet under them. It's been, go, go, go. You're one night you're playing a double overtime game or an overtime game against the Timberwolves and you're flying out to Milwaukee. So, but I think defensively, this team, it'll be interesting because again, the sample size on what needs to improve is so small. It's so minuscule compared to what they've been doing well. But when you're, again, when the goal is the championship, you have to look at that, that small amount and figure out how they can fix it. I will give them credit. The free throw shooting has been improved recently over the past week. The third quarters haven't, and it was better, a little bit better tonight. But you're still giving up a 6-point lead and swing it to a 13-point swing to a 9-point deficit in the third quarters in a game against Toronto. And when you're playing these rigorous schedules and this, back-to-backs, Toronto should be the game you're circling saying, let's beat them by 30 so we can rest our guys. So again, it's like you look at trends. We're undefeated against Toronto and they're at home. Trends suggest that they could potentially get one on us. So it's like,
they're 0-10 against the division now.
No, I know for sure. For
how
sure.
many division games do they have? What, 4 times?
No, but even still, when you look at that trend suggests that you're not going to lose all of them. You're due to grab one. I'm not making it, I'm not trying to make excuses, but you got to look at all aspects of this. So again, we'll have an opportunity Wednesday night at home. Really, these next 2 games, you get Tuesday, Monday, or sorry, wow. Okay, that's how the schedule for the week goes. You get Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to be at home. A little 3-day stretch before you have to go back on the road. San Antonio is a great opportunity to just get your feet under you. We did it against Houston, but then we had that, again, you're at home and you have this weird fly out to Toronto, and then you're back home for 2 days and you fly, or 3 days and you fly out again. So it's just so weird. So we have an opportunity here with Denver. Again, Denver at home, that's a big one for us on Friday night. 4 days. You get to be at home for 4 days. This San Antonio game, I want to see improvement because not only are, mind you, you're trying to keep this undefeated streak at home alive for number 20, but you're looking to progress and improve over the course of the year. You don't want to fizzle out in January. You want to keep improving. So I do think Wednesday night it will be an interesting one to see. Obviously, it's cool to see Wembanyama come into town, but I also do think that there are some things. It's an opportunity for the Celtics to get things right, to maybe try some things out in that third quarter, and fix some things.
Talking about trying things out, I want to see more of the bench. What happened to Nemaesh Keita? Where did he fade off to after a career road trip? He had 2 double-doubles in that road trip. Where did he? And now, look, man, I get it. Luke Cornett has been playing very solid. He had a 20-point game a few games ago against Toronto. I understand that. But what happened? Where is Keita? Why he's not even getting? It's not like he's getting these 3-minute stints. He's completely fallen out of the rotation. He's only played 1 game down in Maine. He played 2 days ago in Maine. So it's like, if you're not going to have him down in Maine, why aren't you playing? Why isn't he playing? Same thing with O'Shea Brissett. Where's this O'Shea Brissett? We see him 7 minutes in the first quarter, like 2 minutes in the second, and then he's gone for the rest of the game. He doesn't get a minute. He doesn't get minutes at all. And with him, he's a very high energy player on both ends. There's games this season.
Well, Justin may have experienced some connection issues here, so Rob will take over the show.
So I think again, what he was gonna say is Brissett's a high energy, high motor player. In these types of games, that's really what you can lean on. And it's weird because we see these, stints from Brissett, and then all of a sudden it's nothing. You don't see from Brissett again. And here we go. Justin's back.
We're hold up. Let's make sure everything is correct on screen here. There we go.
I just got kicked. I don't know what happened. But my point about Brissett is very high energy player. There's been games, both wins and losses this year, where the Celtics lacked energy, and there's no O'Shea Brissett. There's no change. And I'm not saying there has to be, you have to go deep into the bench and play these guys like Svi and all that. But I don't know. I would love to see more Brissett. Delano Banton. I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know. I feel like this San Antonio game would be a good game to kind of test out some guys on the bench and give extended minutes to. But this is also a game where the Celtics have to come out and play a full 4 quarters of basketball. It doesn't matter if it's the San Antonio Spurs.
Can I just say something regarding your Luke Cornett comment?
What?
There's no place for him on the court. There isn't. There isn't. Defensively,
I don't agree with this.
Defensively, Seamus, his inability to defend in which the level the Celtics need him to defend, just quite frankly, is inexcusable. And offensively, everything he gets is very replaceable. He's standing in the dunker spot, catching and dunking off of what the guards mind you, he's a high success pick and roll player. I'll give him that. But most of his buckets are stand in the dunker spot, catch it, and go up with it. 97.5% of big men in the NBA, probably you could pull off 50% of them in college, can stand in the dunker spot, catch it, and go up with it. We need a high motor defensive presence off the bench. We don't need 8 points where you're standing in the dunker spot, giving up 8 points on the other end, virtually canceling out. So, sure, does he have games where, he had a game where he had 20 points, 8 rebounds? Awesome. Great. I mean, you make me 6'11", and I can stand there in the dunker spot, catch it, and go up with it. In defensively, defensively, Seamus, he doesn't belong out there.
I think you're scapegoating Luke Cornett just a little bit, because I don't disagree with you that the Celtics might need a high motor guy off the bench, another one. But I think Luke Cornett, for what he does for the Celtics, I think he's fine. Now, I will say 18 minutes is a lot for Cornett. I will say that's a good amount of minutes. You probably want to see another guy in the rotation off the bench, with the minutes be distributed a little bit around the table. But I think for what Cornett does and what he's developed into with the Celtics, I don't expect him to be this highly versatile player who does it all. I expect him to be solid in his stints, in setting screens, rolling to the rim, being a presence, a physical, big presence around the rim, somebody who can rebound the ball, somebody who can deter shots. Maybe he's not getting blocked shots. Maybe he's not making all these athletic highlight plays. But as long as he is in the right position, emitting his size and his presence and his ability just to play fundamental basketball, I know that's such a bad term to use on the internet because people go, oh, wow, whatever, man. We want the next Michael Jordan. But we forget about all the players in between that do play in these stints who fundamentally they have to go out there and be solid within their own roles. And I think Luke Cornett, the reason he's still on the Celtics 3 years after we traded for him, and the reason he's getting 18 minutes is because he is a solid rotation player to have off the bench. Now, do I agree the Celtics need another player off the bench to alleviate some of the 18 minutes? Undoubtedly, sure. But
and you have
I
that
think with
though
the rest
on the
of the
roster.
team, I think it is. I wouldn't say it's inexcusable, his defense whatsoever. I think, of course, you're going to have bigs who are more compromised than other players who have to play within your rotation, but that's just some of the trade-off that you get with some of these players. I mean, there's not really more high IQ bigs that we could just go poach from the market right now that would be better positional
I
bigs
think you
within our
have one
rotation than Luke
sitting on your
Cornett.
bench. I think you have. I mean, again, it's like I
I don't think
watched with
Cato's.
my.
I don't think he's ready for the minutes that Luke Cornett sees right now. I think
I,
the West Coast road trip, that was certainly something. I think he can be in the future what Luke Cornett, like what he's playing now. But in terms of what they do on both ends of the floor, what sets they can run, just forget about
I mean, we have
the
Luke
talent.
Cornett
What
sitting at the
I like with
3-point line
basketball, right?
defending.
Some guys just simply cannot run the defensive scheme that the Celtics are running. It's like, oh, we're playing half zone, half man. Where does my spot exactly come? In their brain, oh, from an IQ level, can't exactly put things together. But then Luke Cornett, it's like, oh, he might not have the same athleticism or rebounding ability as Cato, which we hope he can grow into that player where he's an advanced Luke Cornett, where he can learn all of this, but he knows where exactly to be within the defensive scheme
But if you
to
can't
deter a
if you
shot, to
can't
deter
get
a
there,
pass.
then why did? But my thing with Luke is, I
But you
watched
can't really play.
live
You
with.
can't let him go through. You said this earlier in the season. This is kind of your own point where you can't be developing these players amidst a season in which you're trying to win.
But I don't think. Again, I sat there with my own eyes and watched Luke Cornett just die on an island against Kyle Anderson and the Minnesota Timberwolves. 8 straight points, die on an island. On an island. We are running Luke Cornett out there on the same time as Porzingis and Cornett are on the court, Seamus, at the same time. And
But
it's like,
that's a Joe Mazzulla problem then,
right,
because
but
I would agree that some of these double big lineups don't make sense, specifically on nights where Porzingis, like tonight, just doesn't look engaged at all defensively on the perimeter. It's like, well, you theoretically have your perimeter guy in Porzingis that you can play more on the perimeter. You can mask Luke Cornett a little bit by the rim, but then if you're a bigger guy in Porzingis, if he's not engaged, then it just, I do agree there's a little bit of a negative there. Now, I will say I agree there should be some alleviated minutes from Cornett. I don't want to see Cornett play 18 minutes in the playoffs. I certainly don't. But I think for these regular season games against matchups where they are missing Jakob Poeltl tonight, I think he can come in and play a little bit of a role in which
you could run a small ball lineup where Tatum's at the 5 and Brissett's at the 4. In the production level would be way higher. Sorry, Justin.
No, I was just gonna say that, like, you don't have to run these double big lineups. Like, we have. Listen, man. I'm not saying, like, I was just on a little tangent about giving some other guys a chance, an opportunity. You could play Lamar Stevens. You could play O'Shea Brissett at the 4. You could slot. We've seen Lamar Stevens play small ball 5 this year. Like, we've seen it. I don't know. I get what you're saying. I think you both are spot on about Luke Cornett. I think there's two sides of it, and I think it's I don't think Cornett's like the worst in the world. I would like to see more Kada. But I also don't think Kada is. I don't know. Like, I'm a big
game
Kada
against
guy,
Toronto. Kada could eat them up. I mean, literally, like you say, we can't develop, which I've said that, and I don't think it's Kada doesn't need. He needs development, obviously, but I mean, look at Chet Holmgren. He is developing at a high level within the flow of what works.
He was the second overall pick. Kata's
right,
like
but
a
right, Seamus, but
two-way center.
He's producing.
Of course,
he's
Chet
producing,
and
hold on. He's producing and developing. You can produce and develop at the same time. So in a game against Toronto, throw Kada in there. Cornett doesn't belong. I'm sorry, he doesn't belong on the court. And he is a phenomenal locker room guy. He is such a great dude. But when you're trying to win a championship,
man, he's a therapist, dude.
Right? But when you're trying to win a championship, it's like if you're gonna play him, you can't have him as the freaking power forward. I'm sorry, but it's like it's bad basketball. I mean, what happened against Minnesota was just, quite frankly, inexcusable. I don't care that Porzingis isn't there. You have these guys like Brissett and Lamar Stevens who are sitting on the bench, who are ready to go, ready to play, and you're sacrificing that for a little bit of Luke Cornett, who, quite frankly, doesn't pose any interior presence. His presence isn't felt. His presence isn't felt on the offensive glass or defensive glass. His interiorly, I think he's been a solid shot blocker and interior, misdirector. But I don't think he brings 18 minutes of Luke Cornett is virtually. It just makes no sense to me. And again, he's had some decent games, but I sit there and I look at how he's been producing, and it's just it defensively, it doesn't make up for what he's doing on offense. It cancels out or, has a negative impact on the Celtics most of the time. And there will be that occasional good Luke Cornett game and it feels good. And you're like, there you go, Luke, right? Because you're rooting for him. But it's just like sometimes they're putting this guy out. And again, you're right, Seamus. It goes back to coaching. But it feels like we're just putting this guy in situations to just go out there and die on an island because, I mean, I've seen countless times where Cornett's just out on the 3-point line defending. Tonight it was Dennis Schroeder. He was sitting on Dennis Schroeder at the 3-point line, and you're just thinking to yourself, like, in what world does this check out? And you have talent. You do. It's not like you have 4 guys on the injury report. You just have 1. So there needs to be other places that the Celtics go.
I don't necessarily disagree on the point of wanting to be maybe integrating some other players in different stretches, but Luke Cornett, I think he's just a solid player on the Celtics roster. I think him and Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard, for all the slack that we can give them, and
Sam Hauser is one of the league's best shooters.
What?
Sam Hauser, I don't think it's fair to put Cornett in the Sam Hauser category. I mean, Hauser is one of the league's best spot up.
Well, I'm saying they're all players who are making $2 million on the Celtics roster coming off the bench. Like they're not making.
Richard is not.
He's making what?
He's
if we trade him, he's making 4.
You're getting real stingy on us here,
off our books,
2, 4. It's the same thing.
I only know that from 2K.
Justin's like, he's not making 2. He's making 4.
But I just think our bench, the Celtics still have good value contractually with all of these guys, and I wouldn't agree with Luke Cornett playing entirely 18 minutes, but I think he's a solid option to have off the bench. And the reason Keita was even able to get an opportunity is because Luke Cornett was hurt. I mean, that's exactly why he was playing. If you look at that stretch, Luke Cornett missed like 4 or 5 straight games with an abductor issue, and he came back into the lineup, had a nice game against the Toronto Raptors, was inserted back into the rotation. And tonight, I don't see a mass, like if you're really picking apart the Celtics tonight, I think there were more defensive issues with everybody than just Luke Cornett. But I mean, yeah, everybody has their Luke Cornett's take. I would say that we're probably on the opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of pro and anti Luke Cornett.
Luke Cornett, I don't think has had I don't know. I mean, again, he's been solid, but I first of all, he should not be on the court in marquee matchups. You can't. Brissett is so.
But like, say the last matchup against the Raptors, Justin, you mentioned he had nearly a 20-point game. 20. Well, what was that?
It was being in the right spot.
We looked at that game. He had a great performance that game, and he just shouldn't have been out there tonight. I think he definitely deserved some of his minutes against this opponent, in my opinion. I mean, we're not structuring the rotations because we're sitting here on post game, but I think some of the grievances against some of the guys off the bench, even Peyton Pritchard at times, even though he shot 1 of 6 tonight, it's like
in no
contractually
world
from what they do on the floor, it's like I do agree there should be another bench piece, but I don't think that these guys are really issues at all.
In no world should Luke Cornett be playing a consistent 12 more minutes a game than O'Shea Brissett. It's just that's where my point is. Cornett's fine when we need Cornett, but we didn't need Cornett tonight, and we did not need Cornett against the Timberwolves. Maybe against the Minnesota because they're a little bit bigger team. But one, I don't think we're using him properly. He should, when he's in the game, he is the big man. Horford's not in the game. Porzingis is not in the game. Cornette is the big man next to Jason Tatum, who's playing the 4. That needs to be, I think, a thing.
Well, it was like when we were running double big with Tristan Thompson. Why? Like, why are we doing that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Offensively, so then you're, again, spacing, right? So real quick, I hate to interrupt you, Justin, but you just sparked a great point I have. Spacing.
What I do.
Spacing is the advantage for the Celtics with this lineup. When you run Cornette with Porzingis, it's gone. Your advantage is compromised because you now have put Porzingis in a lower percentage area, in which is the 3-point line for a guy that his skill can still do it. Does it at a high volume, high level, but is obviously much more effective in the paint. You now have put Luke Cornette in the paint, who is a less effective scorer than Porzingis, and have essentially taken away the spacing. So what? Now you're going to have Luke Cornette stand at the 3-point line when Porzingis is in the paint. No one's worrying about that. You can leave him at the 3 in a more Joe Mazzulla Blue Cornette problem, but running double bigs with Cornette out there takes away that whole advantage that Boston traded Marcus Smart for, which is the spacing and opening up the game for Tatum Brown to get to the rim and go downhill because you got Cornette standing there. And, you're not wrong, Seamus. He's had some awesome games. But
Cornette can shoot threes.
I honestly will say this, too, about Cornette in this matchup. I just don't see the threat of the Toronto Raptors from 3 at all to be worried about mismatches consistently.
Right, but offensively.
Cornette. I know what you're saying offensively, but I'm saying like defensively looking at his matchups,
right.
Because coaches, it's about creating offense with your rotations, but it's also defensively, how do you match up against the other team? And it's like, okay, Thaddeus Young, I mean, he was a complete non-factor from 3. RJ Barrett, 0 of 4. Pascal Siakam, 0 of 6. Jonte Porter started this game. Interesting enough. As NBA.com. I mean, Jonte Porter, Michael Porter Jr.'s brother. Shout out Mizzou. Scotty Barnes, 0 of 2 from 3. Manuel Quickly, 2 of 7. Dennis Schroeder, 1 of 3. Jalen McDaniels, unfortunately my X factor, 1 of 3, only played 12 minutes. 0 of 1 for Thaddeus Young. Boucher came in, played 14 minutes, 0 of 4, and they shot 4 of 32 on the night. So to me, it's like I would say that Cornette defensively against a team that actually shoots a higher clip, like say against Denver, right? I don't think we're going to see Cornette against Denver a ton. I would think.
Cornette guarding Jokic is a nightmare.
We'll see because they do have some size. Like Jokic does present a lot of size. But
nightmare.
I think this is one of those matchups where, say defensively, you can mask him a little bit out there, and then that's where it becomes, is this really even a regular thing? Is this going to be a regular thing moving forward? And even past the deadline, too, when we could potentially add another piece to the rotation, which I am not in disagreement at all over that fact that we need another big body within the rotation somewhere off the bench and somebody who's high motor, high Q defender and can just hit the 3 ball. We don't need a ton of offensive skills out of the next player we acquire. We just need them to hit shots and defend, be a big body and be a big presence. I still agree that we need another body, and that's really the concern off the bench is just some of the lack of what the bench provides us versatility from a versatility standpoint. But I do think for some of what the players are or have grown into off of our bench, it's like, okay, you're doing at most what you can do, and the rest of the team, they're going to be the ultimate like they're going to make up the rest of the equation to win. And when we're trashing on the Celtics or praising them, it's going to mostly come within the top 6 and everybody within that group. And Luke Cornette, Hauser, Pritchard. It's like if they give you anything out of those 3, I think in playoff time, it's probably going to be Hauser, Pritchard, and Cornette. They're probably going to be relegated into minimal, if not no minutes, depending on who we acquire, say at the deadline or off the buyout market, whatever happens with the Celtics, whatever addition they make. Sam Hauser is going to be that guy, and more of the guys we're going to talk about are not really the guys we're discussing tonight.
I will say, Seamus, I don't disagree with you on nearly anything. I tend to agree with almost everything you say, but this Luke Cornette one might be the one thing that that I will have to. I have to.
No, it's actually good.
You
I think
disagreed with
I think
him
we
on a
go in
lot.
circles on postgame and pregame where we're like just constantly agreeing, like you said, man, like you said, and it's like, do we ever disagree with each other? It's like I think Luke Cornett, he drives the line.
I don't think you're gonna lose the. I don't think you're gonna win the Luke Cornett battle with Seamus. I mean, 3 years ago, Seamus went against 57,000
Grant
people
Williams.
on Grant Williams.
Yeah,
he
and
won
at the end
that
of the day,
battle.
he lost that battle because Grant's out of the rotation in Dallas.
Well, he got paid
Yeah.
15 mil. I think
He got
Grant's bank
paid.
account says otherwise.
That I think that
Right over here, Grant.
band for band with
the only
Seamus.
two like things that like I think I can remember us like specifically looking at Seamus like whoa was when he advocated for Ennis Freedom to get more minutes.
I was right there with him.
I
was right there with him.
And then you wanted Freedom to get more minutes?
I remember I called Ennis Freedom a luxury for the Celtics.
Yeah, you did. I remember that. I bring that up all the time. I bring that up to you all the time.
That's just
and then,
terrible.
And then he, Al Farouk Amina, when he was on the Celtics, and
he was like, he wasn't even in the facility. We signed him for 10 days. It was like, all right, we have Aminu with the COVID roster. And it was like, oh, Aminu, really?
So hyped for that.
Portland? Like, really? And it was like, nope.
All right, well, I mean, I will say, if you sat here and watched us talk about Luke Cornett for 20 minutes, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you agree with my point of view. And I could see Seamus's point of view, but again, we're just gonna have to agree to disagree on that.
Awesome.
I never said a bad thing about Luke in terms of who he is. I think it's more of a what needs to happen. What do the Celtics need? And I don't think it's Luke Cornett.
It's not you, it's me.
It's not you, it's me. But I will say, the Celtics had a big time win tonight on the road in Toronto, 105-96. Drew Holiday was tonight's player of the game. He had 22 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. Drew getting acclimated, getting going, looking good. Love having him here. Guys, the Boston Celtics will take on the San Antonio Spurs at home Wednesday, January 17th. Tip-off will be at, I believe, 7:30 Eastern time. Catch us live after the final buzzer right back here for Celtics Talk Weekly, the post-game show. Guys, I'm Rob. Seamus is next to me. Right under me is my boy Justin Lowe. And until next time, go Seas.